All right, good afternoon, everybody. We are here today with James Plaus. Now, James is the CEO of Rent A Gent General Contracting. At the best of times, contracting can be challenging. And yeah, then we get thrown a curveball called the coronavirus. So I've known James for almost 3 years now.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
I know.
We've become good friends. We've done some work together. We've crossed the same social networks, which is a lot of fun. So I wanted to say, first of all, thanks for making the time to be here today so that we could get real, talk about what's going well for you, how you're transitioning, and essentially, you know, what's not working and where there may be some struggle happening.
Sounds good.
So yeah, all yours. Open conversation.
Oh, all right. We can jump right in.
Jump right in.
Just hit my 5-year anniversary with the company, which is fantastic.
Yeah, congrats.
Something that was just started as a, let's see how it goes, has ended up turning into something a lot more than I expected it to do. Recent events, COVID-19 has definitely been detrimental to a lot of people. Just on the news this morning, 500,000 applicants for EI support on Friday alone, which is astronomical. That is a very large percentage of our population that is asking for government assistance in this time.
Mm-hmm.
My industry, we're going to hurt. My business, we're going to hurt. A lot of our clientele are elderly individuals that don't want to do stuff on their own. They've got a little bit of a nest egg. They want to have their dream home. They want to have their dream kitchen. They want to have their relaxation spaces. With the fears of COVID-19 right now, we're not walking into elderly people's homes. You know, World Health Organization is saying you could be carrying this, not have symptoms, and be giving it to everybody you come into contact with. So as of last week, we put complete kibosh on all jobs. Going into people's homes. We're only doing virtual quotes where if a client really wants us to quote on something right now in this time, we'll do a video call via cell phone or laptop, and we'll discuss it virtually like this. You know, brings a whole new Star Trek aspect into business, which, you know, 30 years ago, as we're all growing up on it, never thought, this is never going to be the way of life. And, you know, this is what we are. You know, open a channel. So it's been interesting. It's been very, very interesting.
Yeah,
going forward, we don't know what's going to happen. I'm expecting Canada, as well as many other countries in the world, to hit recessions of some sort, hopefully minor, could be much major than what we'd like to see with what's happening with this virus right now and the people being told to stay at home. Our industry will typically get hit the worst in a recession. People will still get their hair cut. People will still get their dogs groomed. They'll get their nails done. They'll still shop for groceries and clothes, but people will not renovate or build when they're not sure what their money is going to be doing over the next 5-10 years. So we got to start planning for that.
Okay. So there's a whole lot you talked about there. So let's start to unpack it. One actual funny thing that we noticed yesterday actually was we were talking about how we can't say the 20s because we're in the 20s again. And interestingly, everybody on the call realized at that moment that the 1920s was the Great Depression. And yet here we are 100 years later going into what potentially could be a Great Depression.
That's right.
Absolutely right. I mean, you know, home renovations, upgrades, that's all luxury. And when you have no confidence in the banks or the markets or what the value of anything is going to be, that lack of stability definitely makes people want to hold on to what they have. So you can see that being an interesting challenge, which we'll talk about. You brought up Star Trek.
Well, think of it right now. So I've been binge watching Star Trek Voyager. I haven't seen it in 20 some odd years. Everything within the show, as all Star Treks, has been somebody looking at a camera and viewing the person on screen from another ship, another planet, wherever it is.
Right.
Our age right now, with everybody being self-quarantined, self-isolating, this is our form of communication.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, I was talking about this with my wife this morning. I'm a huge science fiction fan myself, and there's generally two future views, and one is of a dystopian future, the other's of a utopian future.
Yeah.
And most science fiction goes the way of dystopian. So what was interesting is someone put together a chart, a chronological timeline of all the different years that are, mentioned in film. And television and what have you, books, as far as the lore, like the universe, not particular stories or movies, but for example, Star Trek has a timeline, Star Wars, Blade Runner, Doctor Who, even all of these different sci-fi things have this different timeline. And then they put, we are here, and it talked about the COVID-19 outbreak. And when you look forward at all of these types of futuristic science fiction things, you're right. I mean, we're communicating through screens. We have droids and robots doing most of the day-to-day work in households, or doing, for example, construction work or police work. Like, because for some reason in the future, whether it's a good future or a darker future, we are simply not as huggy and touchy as we used to be. There's even some science fiction universes. You look at the old Sylvester Stallone movie of the future where touch is forbidden, right? So there's all kinds of interesting things in science fiction about that. And sometimes you got to wonder where people come up with these ideas and how we often end up running parallel with what these future ideas are. So I just wanted to put that there as an interesting aside. So now let's get real though. Let's talk about, so I know that, you said 5 years, congrats on that. And I know that you built it up relatively quick, and then, some things went awry and you were starting to rebuild again. And then this happens. And so now you've put a hold. I didn't know, that's new to me, that you've put a hold on all jobs currently, except for doing virtual quoting. Now, how does that actually affect your cash flow right now?
It makes everything get hunkered down. I typically try to keep 3 months reserve of, bill payments, groceries, necessities in the bank, which basically gives me a 3-month buffer. When I first started this company, talking with other people in the trades, they kept giving the warning, plan for the winter, plan for the winter. Winters always slow down. Make sure you've got money in reserves to get you through the winter. In the 5 years, I've never seen a slow winter. Right? It's been go, 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 12 months out of the year. I never expected giving that warning or being given that warning 5 years ago to make sure you plan for a few months, needing it coming into a spring where we're not allowed to really be out in contact with anybody. So using that planning from 5 years ago has saved me for 3 months right now. I had a huge batch of guys ready to start working. They've been hired, but now they've been given an indefinite start date because A, money not coming in, can't pay them because you're not on job sites. B, COVID-19 right now, we don't know what our employees are doing outside of the job site. So I can't have these guys who are walking into clients' homes that, the night before decided, I really needed to go see somebody who potentially could have had it, and then suddenly it's being transmitted faster. So best option was to shut it all down, give it time, see what happens. The next 2 weeks, now that everybody's back from still going away on March break, doing all of these things for themselves, the next 2 weeks is going to be paramount to see what happens with this. You and I have been kind of talking about the curve the last little bit. You've posted the curve on Facebook. All of these things that the government's doing right now is to try and flatten that curve, but we're still trending the exact same as Italy, as Spain, as Iran. None of this has changed yet. So all of these people that their week away was so important to them, the next 2 weeks is going to be paramount to see what happens.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I do find that fascinating. I mean, even now with OPP laying fines to people up to $1,000 if you're out, and businesses $500,000 if you're conducting business, and yet businesses are still running,
Yeah.
people are still doing, and it's this lackadaisical attitude. And I don't know if we get it from our cousins in the South, because there's been a lot of divisiveness there about how serious to take this, but
Yeah.
one of the best articles I've seen lately, and I think it was actually my wife that shared it with me, it said, assume you're infected, how would you react now? Right?
Yeah.
And that's true. I mean, the first, we talked about this recently on one of these episodes, is we talked about how the first doctor to raise his hand and say something's wrong was back on December 25th. And he's now received a national apology from the Chinese government. So December 25th, and the dark humor of it is, hey, if you have not interacted with another human being since December 25th, then chances are you might be okay.
Yeah.
But that's going right, like, that's Christmas season, New Year's.
Yeah. When you're with everybody.
Exactly. So, chances are we are all carriers at this point.
Yeah.
And the government's already teased a little bit at martial law and lockdown. We've seen it happen down in California. But you're right. I mean, that curve has to get flattened. Now, if anyone, this is your first time we're talking, you're not sure what we're talking about by flattening the curve, is there is an exponential curve upwards as people continue to be in contact with each other that is causing this virus to spread. So the most essential part to bring the virus in control is to minimize the amount of contact with other people, thereby flattening the curve is what they call it.
Yeah.
If you do follow us on Facebook at How To Project, I'll put a link at the bottom of this video. Then you can see some of the posts we've made that talk about, the short amount of time it's taken for this virus to spread so rapidly. And that's the threat here. It's not about whether you're healthy. It's not about whether you're going to make it. It's about the fact that you may have come into contact with someone who comes into contact with someone who comes into contact with that person's grandfather.
Yeah.
That's what it's about at this point. So yeah, you're right. We got to stay home. We got to shut down businesses. I do know a couple of people in the trades industry, some new home builders, for example, master carpenters, they were still out building as much as they could because essentially, there's no people living in those homes.
Yeah.
So they're up building frames. It's a little bit different environment, but at the end of the day, they called it quits for now as well. Because to your earlier point, they don't know what they're doing with like what their crews are doing when they go home at night. They don't know what the other crews on site are doing, the electricians and the plumbers and all of them. So it's safer at this point to flatten that curve and just everybody stay home. So cool. So we've talked about having some savings in mind, and you're right, 3 to 6 months is the average amount that a business or even a family should have in order to survive any type of thing, such as a pandemic, this type of outbreak, zombie apocalypse, all these things.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, what are you going to do? What creative ideas have you come up with to generate cash flow? And the reason I ask this, James, is some experts are already saying this may not be just staying in for a few weeks or months, that this could be a fundamental shift in the way business is being done going forward, which again, we joked about Star Trek, but what if this becomes part of the new norm? What does that mean for you? How are you going to pivot your business so that you can survive and more so thrive?
Yeah, so there's a couple different factors with that. So obviously being in the trades, you've got to be on site doing stuff. It's not a virtual world where we can conduct business virtually 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Things still need to be done in person. That'll always be the case with the trades. Plumbers, HVAC, electricians, it doesn't matter what the trade is. It always has to be an on-site thing. Problem being recession. People don't have the money. Doesn't matter how many trades there are, they're not going to be getting jobs. Or it's going to become such a cutthroat industry that, I'll use electricians as an example right now, your average electrician is charging $85 an hour. Well, depending on how hard a recession can hit, just to get jobs, those electricians could be dropping their prices down to $35 an hour. And as that becomes more dog eat dog, you're going to start seeing a lot less money flowing through the hands of Canadians than you do right now.
Right.
That's the biggest problem, trades on site, how things are going to change. Virtually, we can't change. Aside from doing online quotes, we can't change our physical work that we have to do. no different than a distribution worker or a warehouse worker in a distribution warehouse for groceries. Those are jobs that are always going to be there in order to keep things flowing. People that are doing things virtually, which is where I was actually talking with a couple people today on marketing the other concept, and I think you and I have talked about it before, was going strictly consulting.
Right.
Get off the tools and help teach people how to do stuff themselves. You know, so John and Jane Smith, they want to redo their bathroom. They have no idea how to do it. It's something that can be taught virtually on proper do's and don'ts, figure out a way for them to do tool rentals where you don't actually have to be in physical contact with them, but you can make arrangements for them to get the tools they need to do the jobs they want, and literally walk them through the jobs just like we're doing right now. Mm-hmm. Where they can have their cell phone, be showing what the job is, showing what progress they've made, and do a minimal charge for the consulting as opposed to a larger price for the whole job, people moving in and out of their homes. I was in Home Depot on Friday, had to get materials ready for a job, walked into Home Depot. It was a nightmare, absolute nightmare. Everybody's looking at these 2 weeks off as being time to get stuff done around the house. Home Depot was packed. I walk in the door, it's literally shoulder to shoulder people, front to back.
Yeah, not really flattening the curve there at all, is it?
Not at all. I walked in, I got about halfway through the store. There was an associate and a customer talking with each other 3 feet apart. No way to go around them. Went right in between, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm out of here. I am not putting myself at risk because these people are trying to think of things to do for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's not vacation time. It's not, hey,
it's not.
Paid time off. It's not. It's,
you know, but that's how people are looking at it. And I think that's the biggest frustrating part that I'm seeing as a business owner. I was following a post earlier today, somebody going on about shutting down drive-throughs and food service companies. And then taking, you know, the government should be imposing a 4-week isolation, not a 2-week isolation. And I'm reading all of these things. And by the time I got to the end of all these threads, I was pissed. I'm like, guys, you don't understand the necessity of keeping these things going. Right now, we've got most professional services are pretty much shut down, with the exception of lawyers, which will never, you know, shut their offices because lawyers are lawyers. But you've got all of these money-making industries right now that aren't making money.
right.
Well, if they're not making money, there's no money going into the economy. So the only thing that's sustaining us right now are the Tim Hortons, the Burger Kings, the McDonald's, because that's the only money really flowing into the economy. People are screaming, buy Amazon, you can get everything online. Well, that's great, but where's that money going? We're taking Canadian dollars and we're giving it to the US.
Well, and interestingly, though, lots of different points there. Some interesting things, though, are, you're right, there are many industries hit, a lot of the retail and customer-facing industries that is obviously going to have a huge impact on the economy. And at the same time, there's tons of consultants. I mean, working from home remotely, remote work, distributed teams, it's not a new concept. I myself have been doing it for almost 20 years now on and off, depending on who I've been working with or what I've been doing. So we still have a lot of large corporations that have, you know, locations in Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, and these distributed teams are still working the same day after day after day. So some of our telecom providers, some construction companies, like there's a lot of business still contributing to the economy. What the fear is, of course, is the sustainability of what you said, all those forward-facing, front-facing industries. If we do shut them down, then that's going to take a hit on the economy. Yet at the same time, have you thought about where is the balance? Because if we really want to flatten the curve and we take away, like that one person saying a Tim Hortons window, right? She's interacting or he's interacting with every single person that comes by in their car. And if they're one of the few things open, I mean, Tim Hortons has been nonstop busy for the last few days, right?
Yeah.
So you look at that, they could easily put 10,000 people through a drive-through in a day in one location. How do you think that's going to go over if that one person's a carrier at the window?
But this is where you use things like, so since they've requested or suggested people self-isolate, Tim Horton says, you know what, order on the mobile app.
Yeah.
So I do. Every single coffee I order, every lunch I order, everything goes through the mobile app. I literally get to the thing, mobile pickup for, I drive up to the window. I'm not having to pass money across. They're not having to put a terminal out because you pay for it all on the app. You literally just grab your coffee, put it in your vehicle, and you go.
And that's kind of the shift we're talking about here, the way business is going to change. As a little fun aside, we had a financial advisor on yesterday and was talking about coffee and how the number one expense, the number one needless expense, regardless of pandemic or not, is people spending it on going out for food and groceries. And he was talking about how your average $5 coffee a day ends up being $1,250 a year that families aren't saving. So especially in a time like this, maybe going out for coffee is not the best idea. And same thing, you go into a Costco and you see all of the, pizza pops and frozen pizzas and all the non-healthy essentials gone. But, there's still tons of fruit and vegetables there, but people are buying all of the stuff that can be frozen and things like that, and not realizing that they're hurting their cash flow more than anything. So yeah, it's interesting. Let's back up and talk about your idea of virtual quotes and how you can do some walkthroughs with people. I was just brainstorming with you as you were saying it. I mean, let's look at how we can bring that science fiction into reality and maybe become a leader in your industry going forward. So you talked about the chaos at Home Depot. Let's combine that with the pickup window of Tim Hortons. So imagine having an app and you've got these self-service lockers. So now your customers can come, and in the locker bin is the tools they require to do the job at their house. That could also include a body cam or a head cam like a GoPro. And then you can basically have your contractor sitting here just like you are, walk them through the job as they're doing the job for what would be deemed basic things. And I'm sure you would agree, even though you're making money from it, you would agree there are some things people could do themselves with a little bit of direction and help. It's not always specialty work, although some things you do require a licensed professional. So please don't misunderstand.
If I could add to that.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
I don't think it's possible now, but in 5 to 10 years, the Microsoft HoloLens, if you're aware of that, which is essentially, it's augmented reality. So it's like glasses that you put on, and then it'll take virtual things and put it in your real world environment. So imagine, James, that you have a client who's come to you and needs help with their bathroom, as you said. They have their HoloLens, you have your HoloLens, and they can see you almost like a video camera, just kind of there, and you can see everything they're seeing. And it's a much more seamless interaction.
Well, there's some Star Trek for you right from
day. I'm thinking more Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone and Sandra Bullock.
Well, let's not talk about that because there could be children watching. But just the same, there are ideas. And I love the consulting idea we talked about earlier, helping other contractors just starting out, feed from your wisdom and experience. However, there's probably not a lot of them getting started today. So it's more about what can you do today to keep the cash flow happening for you, because it's you have to survive, right?
Yeah.
And interesting.
That's the fear. That's the fear right now.
Well, tell me about your fear. What is the fear then?
If I'm not on site, if I'm not booking quotes, there's no money coming in. And as much as the government's stepping out saying we're going to help Canadians, as a business owner, as a small business owner, there's not a lot out there.
Right. The only option for self-employed right now, for any self-employed watching, is you actually do qualify for these EI type benefits. But as a self-employed business, you have $900 paid bi-weekly. Yeah. So it's something, which is great, but it's not the same as what some others are getting that have, the 600-hour year last year, or laid off, that kind of thing. But
so $1,800 a month. $1,800 a month if you're a family of 4. Luckily we're not, but if you're a family of 4, well, even a family of 2, $1,800 a month doesn't go very far.
No, no, it absolutely doesn't. So
You
again,
know,
but that's also why, I mean, that's again, like when you run the math at the end of the day, I believe the Canadian government's really stepped up regardless of your opinions of Trudeau. Like him or hate him, he's been doing a bang up job of informing us every day of what's going on, getting stimulus packages going. Even Ford for Ontario, again, like him or hate him, some really strong things have been happening. So if you run the numbers, you've got, let's say your family of four, self-employed, $1,800, plus you've got deferred mortgage payments. You've got some of the utility companies are starting to say the next 60 days may be free is what they're looking at. You've got different software providers that are deferring payments and giving people free 2 months at this point. So a lot of the expenses are actually reducing. So depending on how much effort you're willing to make, you might be able to find what you need to survive is what I'm seeing.
okay, so let's look at the deferred payments. The you know, we're going to give you 60 days without having to pay. I know I had heard Rogers was doing a 90-day. Don't worry about paying your bill for 90 days.
Right.
Well, all fine and dandy for the short term, but people are still going to have to play catch up. Where's that money come from 90 days down the road? You know, rental tribunal right now is not accepting or enforcing any eviction notices.
Mm-hmm.
So they've now basically said, okay, guys, if you don't want to pay your rent, don't pay your rent. You're not going to get evicted for it. But in 90 days, you've still got to play catch up. Well,
Absolutely.
Where's that money going to come from?
Right. Well, and that's where my opinion may differ for some others people's. Some people are like, well, 90 days from now, we'll be starting to get back to normal. I hope that happens. I hope people are back to work within the next 90 days. So then where does it come from? Yeah, you'll be playing catch up for a few months, even with a full-time pay in that situation, right? Or in your situation as self-employed, my situation, getting those contracts back on track, we'll be playing catch up for a little bit. Again, right now, I think people are looking at immediate survival. Now, where my opinion differs is I don't think things are going to get back to normal. I think this is pivoting towards some realm of the new norm. I think a lot of businesses, I've said it a couple of times previously this week, we're witnessing the demise of the rat race. Right? Your traditional 9 to 5, you know, commuting in, commuting out, even though a minority, I looked up the stat, it was like 25 to 30% of businesses employ distributed teams only. And now we're at like, you know, 90 to 100%. So I think the fall off of the new norm is you're going to easily see more than 55 to 60% of businesses doing things this way because it's actually more profitable.
I'm going to change that around. I can see 45 to 50% of major corporations doing it this way.
Right. Absolutely.
Your regular small business owner, your convenience store owners, your hair salons, your pet food stores, all of these retail locations, even things as simple as, I don't know, Adidas in a mall.
Mm-hmm.
These are non-remote working jobs. So yeah, major corporations that have the ability to have people working from home is fantastic. The virtual aspect for them, no problem. An employee with IBM on tech support, no problem. They can sit in their underwear in their home office. And no, I'm not sitting in my underwear, just to let you know. For them, it's not a big deal, but it's a small percentage of the economy from major corporations. We've got to look at all of the small business owners with 1 to 10 employees, or even no employees. If you look at a lot of convenience stores and stuff that are all family run, these are the ones that are going to be affected the most, especially if this continues for, and you know, the whole 2-week self-isolation thing, you're right, 2 weeks is going to be a drop in the bucket to what this is actually going to look like. Watching infectious disease expert on Joe Rogan's podcast. I don't know if you ever watched Joe Rogan stuff. It's about a 15-minute podcast. This guy's literally saying, like, we are going to be looking at this going forward for 6 to 9 months, you know, with 500,000 to 1 million deaths by the time it's done. Like, this isn't just let's break the curve right now. This is long term. And all of these small businesses can't go long term.
Right. Well, and let's qualify, because you brought up some good points. So thank you for stopping me there, because yeah, I mean, it's not even about whether you're a Fortune 500 versus a small business per se. It comes down to the very thing we've been talking about, even on a family level, which is cash flow. There are a lot of large businesses that run at negative cash flow. They're not profitable. They just have a lot of revenues coming in, and using different strategies like these deferred payments on their outstanding balances, et cetera. A lot of these large corporations can continue to run. So for them, looking at how to reduce the expenses of on-site work can actually help them become profitable. But some of them aren't going to make it. Some of the large corporations aren't going to be able to transition quickly enough. From our line of work, we know to take, say, a Fortune 500 company into a brand new business model, on average takes 10 years. We have clients calling us now that want it done in 10 days. So it's a very interesting dynamic because, some of the larger corporations won't be here going forward. At the same time, the other end of the spectrum, which you're right, in Canada especially, contributes by far the most to the economy, is small businesses of up to 15 employees. Unfortunately, the sad reality there is a lot of those businesses are going to be closing their doors, which hurts the economy. Or there's going to be conversations like what you and I are having right now is how to transition. Right? Because to your point, whether it's not a blip, if it is, great, but even if it's 6 to 9 months, or even if it's the next 3 to 4 years of recovering from this, the business model cannot stay the same. I mean, our statistics that we've been monitoring are all over the place. The old marketing technique data, some of it's still sound. But for example, it used to be you would send an email out or a text out or a Facebook post out on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and there was a formula. You would have Monday being the education and the Wednesday being the personal share, and then Fridays when you have the call to action and close the sale. And if you did more than that in some industries, then people would just unsubscribe. We've been sending out emails like 3 to 5 times a day, and we've had like a less than 1% unsubscription rate. So all the data is just all over the place right now. So we really are creating a new reality for how business is going to be. And those that can shift and keep up with that and adopt a new paradigm for how they work, they're going to be there. And, you're right. Hands-on businesses will always be hands-on. I think what we might see is a lot of that support work, a lot of the admin work for those businesses may not have to be on site. Like the days of even having a construction site office might be gone. Right? You just might have the workers on site when needed, and everything else can be done remotely. It saves expense, prevents contamination, increases standards, that kind of thing. Now, I was talking with someone in construction the other day. He actually does on-site health and safety. So for him, the challenge has been is that while they were still working, what he's seen is a lot of people around him getting laid off. And then, his particular role, he was now responsible for 20 sites instead of 6. So again, it's a shift in the business model to to create profits or increase profits where there weren't any before by reducing expenses. So okay, no, that's a valid fear though. I totally get that. That's a very valid fear. So do you have any ideas today? Like what could you do today to start generating some income? So this is for plumbers, electricians, carpenters, other people in your type of industry, other tradespeople. What could you do today?
Honestly, the only thing today would be to come up with a way to help people isolate. For me, I've actually been reaching out to clients because I've got a lot of elderly clients that don't want to go anywhere. So I've been reaching out saying, hey, if you guys need stuff picked up, if you need stuff done, let me know. Now, making money on it? No. I've got 2 clients, both over the age of 70, one getting up to 70. I've said to them, do not go out. Don't take the chance. Send me an email, give me a call, send me a message, whatever it is you guys will need, I will get. But that's just being human. It's not something that you can make money on. It's something that I'd like to never see somebody try to make money on. Because right now, it's not so much what are you going to do to keep making money, it's what are you going to do to keep mankind human.
And that's, First of all, I love that. Thank you. That's actually been, it almost feels prompted at this point because it's a recurring theme that comes up every single day, chasing money versus nurturing relationships.
Yeah.
And I think more than anything, that is the fundamental shift we're going to see in business for a while.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people are doing that same thing, even in our community townhouse complex where you've been. As I said earlier, you're a good friend, so you've come over. We have our own little Facebook group, and people are saying, hey, instead of all of us going out all the time, why don't we do a group run, have one person go out for the group? So I love that. And even my own business students, what we've been encouraging them to do is things exactly like what we're doing right now. Nurture the relationships. Now, is that a form of marketing? Absolutely, because it keeps you top of mind. It reinforces your core values and that you're not simply about the money. So, you know, pursuing those relationships, nurturing those existing ones, creating new ones, being able to help people with how can they survive today. You're right. That's exactly what we get to do as human beings, is help each other. That's why we use that hashtag global community, because really at the end of the day, we are. And we'll get through this by being there for each other in the best way possible. And when we do get through it, that's the kind of relationships that people are going to want to do business with. You're the kind of person they're going to call for the first renovation that comes up.
That's right.
Right. Which is great. So that's still down the road.
Yes. And it is.
What are you doing today to make some money?
Today, nothing.
Today, nothing.
There's nothing I can do today to make money. What I'm going to be spending the next 2 weeks doing is figuring out the marketing and the proper format for consulting.
Okay.
It's the only option that I'm going to have for long term, because I can't have, the worst thing that will sink a company right now is, and I'm going to use EB Games Canada as an example of this, the worst thing you can do right now is publicly put out you're more concerned about profit. Right. EB Games, all their stores were open, people lining up to get, I don't know, whatever the new hot game was that came out last week. Oh, is it Doom? Is that the whole thing, was Doom?
Isn't that funny? Aptly named, right? People stood in line for hours to pick up a copy of Doom.
Yeah. So for EB Games, all they're doing is providing a service to their clients.
Yeah.
But the bad publicity they got from 30 seconds of a news media camera showing everybody standing 6 inches away from each other, all the way down the storefront, waiting to get a game, literally made them shut their doors across the country because of 30 seconds of bad publicity.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what's going to start happening with businesses. You either are forced to close, to not be downcast on society, because if you keep your doors open right now, it just simply looks like you're doing it for profit.
Right.
And that's what we're looking at. Unless you're providing food, unless you're providing medication, unless you're providing toilet paper, everybody else right now is deemed non-essential. And if you're still doing business, you are shunned.
So may I challenge you on that?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I agree with you. There's perfect validity in what you're saying. Yet at the same time, if you were in one of my programs, what I would say right now is that a story you're telling yourself, or is that an excuse to stop you from getting the results you want? And what I mean by that is this is where our creativity comes into mind. So for example, this is why we do it. We spitball together. We're going to brainstorm together. Hopefully I'll be involved in your sorting out of the consulting over the next 2 weeks. I'd love to be a part of it for you. So let's look at things like how to be relevant today. Now, I know nothing about home repair. I don't. Am I a general contractor, plumber, electrician? No. Do I have those friends? Well, I have you and a few other specialty people. So I could go on to YouTube right now free of charge and look at do-it-yourself videos. And I could probably watch 3 different videos and see 3 different ways of doing something. And the second guy says, don't you dare do it the way the first guy did it. And the third guy says, both of those guys are idiots, right? So there's so much misinformation out there. What I would love as a consumer, and I would be willing to pay for it, is if I had, let's say, a self-isolation video checklist, not a free video offering. Maybe you do that as the intro, maybe you do that as the hook, right? But instead, why not start that idea now? Like, it doesn't have to be right, it doesn't have to be perfect, but put together a package. What's fair? 99 bucks, 49 bucks, whatever it is that's fair, where you basically have someone go through this checklist in real time. So they're the physical body in their home, and you're checking the different valves, you're checking all the different things they need to know to make sure their house is actually secured and going to be functional during this time. I think that has massive value to people, and I think people would pay for it right now. So here's the challenge. You're staying open for business in a way, and you're still serving people, because ultimately that's what we do in business, is we're serving people first, last, and always. So are some people going to be, oh, look at Rent A Gent, look at James now trying to make a quick buck? Well, yeah, of course he is, because the more he can stay alive, the more he can stay in business and have cash flow, the more he's going to be able to serve others through this.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I personally don't see anything wrong with making money as long as you're not exploiting people in the process.
Right. And as a business owner, I 100% completely agree with you. The downfall of social media right now, and technology being what it is, and us talking the way we are, is you get those other soapboxes that will make the most purest intention look like the deepest, darkest incarnation from hell.
Absolutely. I mean, we
and
actually
that'll destroy a business faster than anything in today's day and age.
It could. And we debated opening up even this daily call, because we were doing it privately for our own clients. And then some of our clients were asking if it was okay if their family watched, then is it okay if their friend watched? So we were like, you know what, we're just going to open it up. You know, so far, no one said, oh, that's so self-serving, look at them, what they're doing. Someone might, and that was a calculated risk we had to take. It's a free call, so we can't be, you know, said that we're charging for it.
Exactly.
Right. Now, at the same token, let's say you did start to charge for that service. Who says you have to advertise it? You have an existing client list. You said you were talking to a lot of your elderly, right? Yeah. So if you privately contact people, don't announce on social media. Don't run an advertising campaign. Do it strictly for the clients you have, and by word of mouth referral. We're huge fans of that, you and I, word of mouth referrals, right? So why not leverage the tools I know you already have? And don't worry about, you know, going out and making a public service offering.
Yeah.
Serve the people that are already in your community.
Yeah.
So, and then that way you have a little bit of cash flow, which relieves some of that fear that you were talking about earlier. But even more so, you're relieving some fear for people that don't have your background and survivor skills. And I won't go too much into it, but you know, you're ex-military. So things like this, you're trained for and know how to manage stress better than most of us. So bringing even that type of mindset to people as you serve them is of massive benefit.
Yeah.
So something to look into.
You're absolutely right.
Cool. All right. Well, we still got about 15 minutes. I know that James and we've just been monopolizing it, going back and forth. And that's okay. You know, it's, we do. And it's always enjoyable. I love how we can always challenge each other ideas. That's part of the point here, is that it's not, you know, just a show or an interview where it's like, you know, I'm the ultimate authority on things. I'm doing it because I want to learn as well. So the people I've been inviting to share are experts in their fields, and it's expertise I do not have. So that's bringing value to me as well as the people that tune in. So I do see some people in the chat. If you want to ask a question, either jump on in or just simply, you know, type in the chat window, and we'll get James to answer your question. Everybody's so shy now.
To add to your point, James, about the social media kind of bashing you if you're doing something coronavirus related, you know, I can't say I felt exactly about the social media aspect, but so I make chatbots, and essentially I've been hired to make a coronavirus awareness chatbot. And I almost felt bad, like charging. It's like I actually did charge less because the guy was doing it for no profit for himself, purely just a community effort, right, to help his people. And I did charge a bit less, but I still I felt bad charging anything, really. Now I still have to, because the expenses of just the job itself, of, you know, the hosting and all of that. But yeah, it was more of an internal thing. But Yeah, the realm of chatbots has turned very hard to the COVID-19 stuff because you have the awareness chatbots, and governments are starting to come out with them. The South African government came out with a WhatsApp bot that you can just ask it questions. It's just a very basic, like you type myths, or you can type medicine, or you can type news, and it'll give you that information, and they keep it updated. Um, but yeah, a lot of governments are coming out with an automated system to do like a self-assessment, like a risk assessment bot. So it'll ask, there's one called on providence.org. They'll ask, they're mostly for the west coast of America. So they'll ask you like, what state are you in? And then have you been in contact with anybody who's traveled to these countries? Have you been going out a lot recently? Have you done this? Have you done that? And then they'll send, it's not a percentage based thing, but they'll just tell you like, okay, so you've met with people who did go to these countries, so you may be at risk. Now you may not be sick, but you may be a carrier. So
Yeah.
it's the inside type of thing. And then some links on some other articles. But yeah, chatbots has very, very hard. The industry has turned to coronavirus related services essentially.
Well, and to that point, Dan, I mean, every marketer in the planet right now is
Yeah.
leveraging COVID-19 to their
Yeah.
advantage.
Yeah.
There's two types of marketing. There's the love marketing, the happy ending marketing, the dream come true marketing, and then there's the fear mongering marketing. So we're seeing a lot of that right now in both extremes. We're seeing a lot of people that are encouraging us to be the global community together, et cetera, et cetera. But I actually have received some marketing that talks about, if you don't do this, you and your family will die. And that's just not how we do it. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, that's one of the first rules in marketing is always tie your marketing into what's current in the world. Right. So of course, everything's about Trump for the last however many years he's been around, or about what's going on in regards to this pandemic right now. So yeah, but you did bring up a good point. It comes back to that dilemma. I mean, do we charge for serving others? For me, and this is why I'm a huge believer in policies, company policies, is we always determine those things when things are good, so we don't have to question ourselves when things are bad.
Yeah.
Because when we get emotional, we're human beings. Most of us in an emotional state do not make good decisions. So it's better to have those things planned out ahead of time.
Yeah.
And then that way, even though it's a pandemic, or even though it's this, or even though it's that, we can make exceptions when we choose to, because that's the freedom we have as humans. But at the same time, we need to have a standard we set ourselves to. Especially now, like I said earlier, with you, Dan, chatbots, that industry is exploding right now because you think about it, the more self-service companies can offer, I mean, especially for governments or emergency services or anything like that, they are so bombarded right now. I remember just over a week ago, what ended up happening a week ago, I called in when I was first at an event, and that event potentially had somebody that had called in for COVID-19 positive. And so the event got shut down, and immediately I was like, how do I get tested? So I called around, all the phone lines were busy, finally got a hold of the local hospital. They transferred me to the emergency department. And the woman that picked up on the other end, she had no time for me and no interest in talking to me. And it wasn't because she was rude. It's because she was exhausted of answering the same question a million times today.
Within the last hour. Yeah.
Right. When she had people to go and treat that really needed help, not me asking questions that I could have found out online. Right. So there are certain businesses that are going to do really well right now, like we talked about. Cool.
Yeah, I've gotten some inquiries from like a telephony bot, because a lot of people are calling in and not getting their answers because there's just so many people calling in.
Right. Well, you know what? Hit me up after the call, because I have a very good solution you could tie into for that. That works really, really well.
Okay, will do.
Yeah. No problem. All right, James. So we've talked about all kinds of things. Oh, one other thing we talked about early on, and I don't know if you said something that really inspired me and moved me, but I've always been a firm believer that there's no such thing as busy seasons and slow seasons. Back to that whole, stories and excuses. If people know in their industry, let's say, doing lawn care, if they know historically that there is no lawns in the winter, then that gives them lots of opportunities to be creative and come up with solutions for what are they going to do to keep money happening through the winter. Now, sometimes it's, we're going to work really, really hard all summer and then take the winter off. That's a valid option. For other people, for most people, it's, we're going to do lawns in the summer, we'll do snow removal in the winter, right? Yeah. So they're always diversifying and being creative so that there is no slow seasons. Now, you doing a lot of, home stuff in the home, smaller jobs and that kind of thing. People are doing that kind of stuff all year, so that makes sense. The principle there, though, is the same. Is I don't know what next season will be like. Therefore, I am going to start planning now, right? The proactive approach, so that when something happens unexpected, like, oh, look, a global pandemic, does it fit in with what my plans were? Cool, if it does. If it doesn't, then how do I need to pivot to continue to move forward, to serve others while building the life that I deserve for myself? So I thought it was phenomenal that you said that, that, you did do the 3 to 6 months of savings to keep yourself going in the event of a slow period, and yet worked so proactively and so smartly that you never had a slow season, so you had to worry about those savings.
Yeah, you always have to pre-plan. Like,
you do.
When I first started, so the intention of Rent A Gent when I first started was a part-time gig. Obviously, get me busy a few days a week, not to worry about it. So when I was booking jobs then, I would get one job done, and then I'd start looking at another one, so there could be 3 days downtime, could be a week downtime. It wasn't a big deal. Once I got the mindset around me of, no, I need to have something planned halfway through this job, so when I'm done, it transitions immediately into the next. Once I got into the mindset of always being proactive as to what's going to be happening over the next 2 months of jobs, 3 months of jobs, 6 months of jobs, it's the only way to contain the longevity of money coming in.
Right.
So anybody that's only planning on it right now, and I see this a lot in service companies, where they start work 8 a.m., 9 a.m., whatever their start time is on a Monday morning, and they just wait for the phone to ring. Oh, what jobs am I going to have today? And that's not going to withstand what we're going through right now.
No, absolutely. And to your point, again, this could be a whole other hour-long conversation. You start building a bit of a buffer in the bank account so that you have reserves. And if you don't need those reserves could be leveraged into short-term investments. So now you're making money on that potential money. There's so many different strategies on how to actually build a sustainable business model and then get to that level of growth and profitability that you want. Whole other conversation, but okay, cool. So, but how are you feeling today, though? You're okay on a personal level?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm actually looking at the next 14 days because I've started actual self-isolation technically yesterday. I'll be the go-to within the family of, if you need groceries, I'll go get it, stuff like that. But I'm looking at actually spending the next 2 weeks just getting caught up on paperwork, brainstorming what the future is going to be, and just get more focused on the business thought process as opposed to the cutting wood thought process. Right. Get back into the business mind of where is this going to be in 10 years?
Right. Okay. That's good. Is there any final advice you would like to give to the viewers today?
My advice to people, and it could be completely wrong advice, but in my mind, it seems valid. If you are on a shutdown right now, you've got some money in the bank, but you've got credit available, start using some of your credit first. So you're not draining your bank accounts, hoping credit will be there at the end. If this ends quickly, use the money in the bank to pay the credit off. If this ends up going long-term, try and keep the cash in the bank as long as you can.
That's not bad advice at all. Okay, cool. Did anyone else have any parting thoughts they wanted to share today with the other attendees?
I got nothing.
You don't have to speak up to let us know you have nothing, but much appreciated. Thank you for that, Dan. Awesome. Then you know what? I will wrap this up. I'm going to say thank you, James, for being here. Some very interesting insights again to an industry that I only know from the outside as a consultant. Yeah, lots of challenges I hadn't considered. So thank you for shining a light on some of those things.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. To you, I will tell you, if you need anything, of course, myself, my team, we're here to support you in any way we can. So don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to ask. And in fact, if you want to stick around after the call, we'll put that into motion right now.
Yeah.
For everyone else in attendance, I appreciate you taking the time today. It's not like you have anything else to do. It's self-isolation, but just the same.
Right.
Thank you for being here today. It's appreciated. Thank you for being involved. And as you know, we are doing this every single day. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, where we have yet another wonderful guest coming in to share their insights on things. And actually tomorrow, I'm fairly excited about who we have. So that'll be fantastic. So yeah, having said that, that'll be it. So have yourself a great day. Stay home and stay safe.
Thanks,
Bye.
brother.
All right.